All right, thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Let's talk about happiness. That's better, right? So I work at the happiest place on earth. You think that would be enough, right, in itself. But I'm going to tell you a little bit today about how I ended up there, how I ended up as creative director there, and in advertising and all of those things that kind of like go along with it, and how I've kind of found my happiness along the way. So early stuff that made me happy. It probably all started with my love of Disney animation. Was always a big Disney animation geek, and one of my favorite ones early on was Fantasia. And I just thought it was so great that, you know, this art form was kind of coming together with music, art, animation, all these things kind of mixed in this great storytelling. And one of my favorite scenes was the Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mickey. So I grew to love like Mickey early on, like a lot of kids these days, but not with Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and those things that, you know, your kids are watching now, but with stuff like Fantasia and the early Disney movies. So I was kind of hooked. And here, went to the parks every other year on vacation with my family. So all of a sudden I was going to this place where the animation, the storytelling was coming to life, you know, and here I was in the middle of it. So that to me was so great, and didn't even, you know, realize at the time as being exposed to all this kind of like great design and, you know, those types of things that were all around together with the storytelling and all that. And it also started here, early stuff that made me happy. Drawing, and this is one of the earliest ones. My mom saved thousands and thousands of these drawings. You'll notice like it's on this computer paper. You can actually see the code kind of behind it. My dad was a computer programmer at NASA. My parents weren't artists or creatives or anything. They were creative people, but in a different way. My dad was a computer programmer, so he was numbers creative, and then my mom was a nurse. But my dad would bring home thousands and thousands of these sheets of paper and stuff, and I would just draw on the back of it. The backside was blank. So this was my early, you know, art supplies and stuff. We didn't have like real like art supplies around, so I'd grab markers and pencils and stuff and just draw on this paper all the time. So we're gonna fast forward a bit here because we've got a lot of ground to cover. So fast forward to high school, you know, I've still kind of been drawing all along the way, and you know, my parents are then asking me, okay, well, what are you gonna do? And I was still saying, you know, well, I'm gonna be an artist. And they said, well, you know, a lot of artists are starving artists. You know, they started throwing that term around. And so they started looking into some other things like for me, actually. And but it was great. They actually came back and they said, well, you know, have you looked into like graphic design? And you know, I kind of knew what graphic design was at the time, but not really. And you know, then I realized like somebody's doing all these billboards and these you know, ad campaigns and these logos and all of this stuff that was out there. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And my parents, you know, they just wanted me to have some money. And thankfully, I got a little better at drawing along the way. And now I've kind of graduated college. I've gotten my first job as an art director at a local agency. So I've gone to school for graphic design and all that. And I'm in Mobile, Alabama at the time, working for, you know, my first agencies there. But in my spare time, I'm still doing the drawing and focused kind of on animation that I loved when I was a kid. I didn't really know how to go about getting into animation. This was a little bit before you could just kind of Google everything. The internet had just kind of started up when I went to college and stuff. And so, you know, there was no information on it that I could kind of get my hands on. So I started kind of writing to feature animation at Disney and trying to figure out what kind of portfolio I needed. And, you know, started building that portfolio and kind of working towards that goal of becoming an animator, actually, you know. And I was doing all this because I thought, well, that's where I'll really be happy, you know. If I'm an animator and I'm making those movies, you know, then I'll be happy because I'll be a part of that. And so I started to apply at Walt Disney Feature Animation and built kind of this portfolio so I could kind of make these great stories. And I was drawing all the time and taking my sketchbook everywhere, and I was drawing in the zoos. And these are actually like from Animal Kingdom once I moved down here. And my quick sketch and life drawing skills was kind of building those up along the way. And all the while I'm working in my first jobs still at agencies, you know. And so during work hours, I'm working in an agency and building my portfolios and stuff, and as an art director. And so I'd finally kind of built up a pretty decent drawing portfolio by keeping these regular sketchbooks and all of that, and got to the point where, you know, I was really trying to be accepted into the Walt Disney Feature Animation training program and getting pretty close at this point. And then the bottom dropped out. It was that time in animation that, you know, if any of you followed that and heard about it, I wanted to be a 2D animator, and 2D animation was declared dead. So that was gone, you know. And now I had this dream that I had to kind of like put aside. All of a sudden there was tons of great professional animators that were out there that had been cut, you know, from studios everywhere and all this stuff, and they were out there. So, you know, me applying to a training program that was no longer, you know, that was like taken away. So that dream had to kind of be put aside at the time. But I think everything happens for a reason, you know. Everything kind of leads you to the next thing. And I had to kind of follow that as much as I could to kind of get to my next avenue or whatever. So I don't regret having gone down that road. The other thing it did is I came to love like sketching, keeping my sketchbook, and, you know, so now when I travel and everything, I'll take the sketchbook and do little drawings, and, you know, I have this little watercolor kit that I love. So, you know, that became like happiness to me, you know, is doing all of that stuff too. And meanwhile, again, I've been honing my skills as an art director, and I'm still doing that like during the day, basically, in the ad agency world. So kind of jump forward to, or shift over into that world, and some recent work that has made me happy in the ad agency world. And I think kind of the work that's made me the happiest when I started to think about it was, you know, usually combined some of those passions for drawing, design, storytelling. When all of those things came together, you know, that stuff was what started to make me happy in the design world and advertising and stuff like that. And I had worked at several ad agencies, you know, over those years. I had kind of bounced around, trying to find a place that I was happy at too. And so after a few years, I grew to love concepting, the big idea, you know, all of those things that we kind of got into this business for, you know, like using our brains and coming up with this great idea and the concept at it all. And I started to win some awards at this point. And so then I was working in an agency in Orlando here, and Disney's internal ad agency that I didn't know that much about kind of came calling, and it started to make sense to me, you know. All of a sudden, all of these things, you know, that I had done, and it kind of led up to this point, and I thought, okay, I never really considered going in-house at an agency. I was always at these other advertising agencies on the outside, but here was Disney, and they were acting like an advertising agency. They just happened to be in-house. And so I thought, well, maybe it's meant to be. And then I joined Disney's Yellow Shoes. So I found that I was the happiest when I was doing this work, like I said, that combined a lot of these things. So I started to put a lot of that into my work as well. And so just kind of looking back at some stuff, you know, I had done over the years at Yellow Shoes. And, you know, this type of thing is, you know, what I thought was kind of the pinnacle of that, where these things were coming together, the drawing, the storytelling, the art, all that, you know, and even animation in these projects that I was getting to do. So designed the logo for Aulani, the new resort we opened in Hawaii. And when I was working on this, again, I wanted to bring some of that storytelling together, even in the logo, you know, and sometimes you do a logo and you're like, well, you just want to make a cool mark and all of that stuff. But here we were trying to talk about the history, the culture of like true Hawaiian people. And they're very proud of that art and that culture and that history they have. And it's not Polynesian culture, it's true Hawaiian. And there's a difference there. And we wanted to kind of communicate that even in this kind of logo icon system. And so again, I kind of fell back to my drawing and sketching skills and, you know, design this kind of icon system to go along with it, that we could use the arch that also kind of makes the A of Aulani. The arch symbolized the gathering point, you know, for Hawaiian people, where they would all come together and talk about important things and, you know, hang out with each other and all that. So Aulani is kind of based on this. The architecture too has a big arch. This is the main kind of hub of the resort where everybody gathers. So I thought that would be cool. The other thing is they kind of embrace the imperfect nature of art. And I thought this was so perfect because I always, doing hand-drawn stuff and things like that, I love when there's little like mistakes or things and happy accidents in it. So if you'll notice on the arch itself, it's not even on the same baseline. One leg is kind of higher than the other. And that's just because I drew it with a Sharpie and like kind of scanned it in and went from there. And then also the font is based on Gaudi old style, but I kind of modified it. And we ended up building a custom font with monotype and stuff for the Aulani Resort based on that. But I kind of put this in because, you know, I think you can even take a logo and you can tell those stories with it. You know, we end up using all these symbols to kind of tell the story of the resort along the way, and all the cool things in Hawaiian culture, and all these things like mean different things, like the great frigate bird and the story of that, you know. And so now you could find out those things through these little pieces around the resort. Also just stuff that was fun. Did this for the World of Disney 5th and 55th Avenue in New York City before it moved to Times Square. And so again, just taking basic storytelling, Disney stories, and something that I always love, the subway designs, so simple, so perfect, and so recognizable. And here we're just trying to remind New Yorkers, you know, sometimes can be kind of jaded to all of that stuff, you know, want to hit them with something familiar and then just kind of make them smile. So we did Soho, Soho, off to work we go, Queens, and even a princess or two. That might can have several meanings, actually. Yeah. It's Disney, after all. And Astoria with a happy ending. Let's watch this and I'll talk about it.
Welcome aboard the world-famous Disney Jungle Cruise.
All clear! My neck is killing me.
I'll tell you, this hat is killing me.
I think the humans like it.
Oh, they're just happy the twofer is back.
What twofer?
The one Southern Californians get.
I've got to go tweet about that.
Hey, we're Southern Californians.
I thought we were in Africa.
Boats!
Now buy a Disneyland Resort park ticket for one day and go to the second park another day for free. Visit Disneyland.com/twofer.
I got in this attraction for free.
Stuart, you are the attraction.
Huh?
So, you know, as an art director in advertising and later becoming a creative director, you're kind of responsible for all of these things, you know, design, storytelling, animation, all this stuff like comes together in these projects. And like the, you know, commercial and the campaign we did for Jungle Cruise, where these animals were kind of coming to life behind the scenes and stuff, and they had a whole nother life, and maybe they were just actors, you know, that are playing a role in this like everybody else, and we thought that was fun. And part of the thing that was exciting to me was behind the scenes making these things, just like making art and making all these, you know, things we like, you know, doing stuff with our hands and actually like physically making these things. So, you know, it's cool to be behind the scenes back there, and all of a sudden, you know, you're behind the scenes at the Jungle Cruise, places you would never get to go, and you've got a whole movie crew back there basically, and you're making this commercial. You're hanging out with the talent, you know, and we had a great director on this, and an even better director of photography. Our DP was Guillermo Navarro, and he had an Oscar for Pan's Labyrinth. And if anybody's seen that, great film. And so, you know, you put these great people together, and that's what I think creative directors do a lot of times too, is you put a great team together. You have your art director, your writer, you know, all those people come together, and people like that, they can bring a lot to it. You know, here we were just doing this, you know, Jungle Cruise commercial like for an offer, but you know, we had this guy that won an Oscar, you know, and so it made it that much cooler, I guess. Oh, this was just funny because these are the lighting guys, like out in the middle of the water, and you can see like they're out in the middle of the elephants and everything, just to get the lighting right, and we were all on the shore. I just thought it was funny. So something else that's always made me happy was to sell the big idea. We talked a little bit about the concept and the big idea and how powerful that becomes, but selling that big idea through was always kind of, you know, appealing to me too, and getting somebody to kind of buy off on something a little bit different. So this campaign for Disney that we came up with, Real Families, Real Memories, was one that I'm pretty proud of, because we concepted from the very beginning. And I sat there and I took notes again, using my basic drawing skills here. And while we're concepting and brainstorming and we're going through this thing, and we're trying to figure out, you know, what we can do for this big campaign. And we were kind of inspired by these YouTube videos we found. We had found these videos where parents were surprising their kids that they were going to Disneyland, you know, and they would videotape the thing, and then they would upload it to YouTube. And they were great. Like, we'd watch them, and, you know, I remember watching the first ones, and like, you know, tears were coming out of my eyes. And I was like, oh man, this is hardcore, but it's good. We got to show people this, you know. And we started showing people, and then they started crying, you know. And so we knew we had something there that we needed to like show a broader audience. We needed to kind of embrace this thing, and maybe we could use this, you know. So we got together and we started talking about this, and we said, well, we're inspired by these YouTube surprise videos, and the thing is, they have real emotion, real families, real storytelling. So we knew we wanted to keep it real. But Disney had never done anything like that before. We had always done stuff that was very polished, you know, very finished, and you know, very kind of professional. And so we thought, well, this is definitely going to be different, and maybe hard to get people to buy off on. So we kind of did up this deck just to sell them on the basic idea of doing this. And we said, well, we want to keep it real, but we have to have some place where we aggregate and collect all those memories and are able to use those in the advertising. So we need some sort of hub that, you know, be the memory hub. And then that guest content can become maybe the marketing campaign. So then all of a sudden, you're in the ads, you're in the TV, you're in the outdoor, and maybe you're even on the castle in the parks. So you come to the parks, and you'll see your face on the castle that day because you had your picture taken by one of the PhotoPass photographers or something like that. And so we just kind of sketched that up like, well, that'd be cool too. And we started showing the presentation around, and the campaign got bought off on, and we started like making this thing called Real Families, Real Memories, and using these real things. The cool thing was they made the castle too at Imagineering. They made projection mapping that, you know, you've seen, you know, in those great videos where they've done all that projection mapping on like places around the world and done these cool things with it. They did a projection mapping show where they integrated people's faces, you know, and supposedly somebody had seen like our initial little sketch idea somewhere. We didn't even know they were making it until we heard they had this projection show on the castle where it was using the real guests. So that was kind of cool that it came full circle like that. But this is one of the spots and how it looked. I think this one's called Tell Them.
Read to the girls what that box says.
We already did too.
The only thing more fun than telling them is taking them. So what are you waiting for?
We're getting on the plane right now and going to Disneyland. Right over there. We're going to California.
Let the memories begin at the place where dreams come true.
I am so excited!
Still great. So it was one of our highest recalled campaigns ever, you know, and hopefully you guys saw some of that a while back. And we ended up doing a bunch of them and collecting tons of memories on the hub, and you could go there and browse everybody's memories and see people had similar memories to yours, and we kind of aggregated them by different themes and stuff like that. So it was super successful for us, and again, something we had never done before. We took a little bit of a risk and put these kind of unpolished things in there. Everything is completely real, and we didn't pay any of those people anything. We kind of went after them, and you know, those initial ones to make that first commercial and said, you know, we'd love to use you in this commercial, but we want it to be totally real. And you know, we ended up giving people like art prints for letting us use them in the commercial, but we didn't want to pay them because we didn't want it to be endorsed. You know, we wanted, these are real things that have happened, and we didn't want anybody to claim we were like faking those things, because we weren't. So that was Real Families, Real Memories. This next thing, it seems to make almost anyone happy, so it's easy to be happy working on Star Wars weekends. And so we do these every year for Star Wars weekends. We've been doing them for a few years now. These particular ones started as airport Duratrans, those big backlit advertisements you see while you're at baggage claim in different parts of the airport. So we wanted to do storytelling that was specific to where you were at the time. And so we had this simple idea of Star Wars weekends now arriving. And so what if they were, you know, getting here to Orlando, and so there's Darth going through security. And then the line says, catch your favorite characters at Star Wars weekends. Then we decided, well, what if we take that to the next level and they're arriving like at the parks? What would that look like? And they're having fun in the parks. And in some of the recent, the one we did this year, and we've done like 5 or 6 of these every year, this kind of, you know, print campaign that lives as posters. This is one that's been super successful for us and kind of spread around the internet a lot. And most people that come to talk to us at Yellow Shoes or are looking for a job or something with us, they've seen Star Wars and they've seen the cereal bar at Yellow Shoes, and that's what they know. We'll talk about the cereal bar in a minute. So with Star Wars weekends, we did a little experiment this year. We came up with this idea of, well, what if we did this digital short? Digital shorts have become pretty popular these days, and you know, you want to do something that's kind of shareable that you'll pass along to your friends. And again, you know, combining these great characters and these great stories, but putting a slightly different twist on it. You know, show them in a different way, so that it's, you know, something you might want to like pass along to your friends and kind of get word of mouth that way. So we kind of invented these digital shorts that we had never done at Yellow Shoes before, you know, with Star Wars weekends, and kind of where they all started. So this was the first one, and it's called Vader Brainstorm.
Hello, my name is Matt Buchanan, and I am an idea generator here at Disney. Every year we have a brainstorm around Star Wars weekends to see what kind of events we could do, you know, to kind of top ourselves from last year. All right, good morning, fresh faces. Good to see everybody here this morning. I appreciate you guys joining us this morning for our annual Star Wars Weekends brainstorming event. We got a busy day, but it's going to be a great time, okay? Okay. All right, who wants to begin? Who's ready? Let's get some thoughts going. Got an idea? Spit it out. Let's go.
Crush the Jedi.
Okay. Let's put a positive spin on that.
Destroy the Rebellion show at Shootout. Oops, was that your planet?
How about we...
How to wipe out a Tusken Raider village in 10 minutes show.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna write those down. If anybody wants to hook on to any of that.
Maybe a makeover show versus a destroy the planet show.
A makeover show. Exactly. It's not.
You said there were no bad ideas.
It's not a bad idea. There's no bad idea at all. I was just gonna say
I
that.
find your lack of interest disturbing.
No. Maybe there's a positive spin that we could.
Ewok toss.
Sorry. This year was a little different, but I think that we left with some really great ideas.
Yes. I'm loving this. Boom.
So we did a series of those. There was 3 or 4 of them, and then we've kind of continued that idea with some of our other projects. And recently we've done where a toy soldier is training kind of a la Rocky style, and he's trying to make it into the Christmas Day parade. We've done one for New Fantasyland where it's Beauty and the Beast themed, and like Belle and Beast are looking for the right castle for them, and it's done House Hunters International style. And which castle will they choose? 1, 2, or 3? So yeah, there's no surprises in it, which castle they choose, but you can look for those. They're all on the Disney Parks YouTube channel. So those have been fun for us, kind of doing these digital shorts. There's also some for food and wine that were really fun if you search the food and wine videos. But they're a different type of storytelling that we're able to kind of like put out there and have people, again, kind of share that with each other. And we're not looking to just like make a commercial, and we're looking to entertain people a little bit and kind of give them something for their time, and that's kind of what advertising has become these days. So this is some of my most recent work. This took a team of actually several teams across not only Disney's Yellow Shoes, but Walt Disney Parks and Resorts Online that do all our online work. And we worked a little bit with Imagineering on this, and we also worked with a place called North Kingdom that's out of Sweden, does great work, and Murata out of LA that does 3D model and imaging and stuff like that for the story of New Fantasyland. And this was a project that took us probably over a year and a half total to do. There was a lot of pieces and parts along with it, and it all started with these models that we built, because when a place opens at Disney, a new attraction or a new land like this, New Fantasyland, you don't have anything to show to start telling people about it. Sometimes we have the Imagineer drawings that are these concept drawings, and we can show those things, but it's hard to communicate what all there is there, and people are planning a year, sometimes longer out, to bring their families to Disney. So we got to show them about all these things. But there were some challenges with New Fantasyland that were pretty apparent when we started to figure out what we're going to do with this. It was opening in phases. Part of Fantasyland has already been there, so what are we talking about, New Fantasyland? There was no story for New Fantasyland. There was story for Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid and Dumbo, all these things that were going to be in it. But there's no one story of Fantasyland. So we said, well, let's figure that out, and let's give it a story. And what if New Fantasyland has always been? Then it started to make sense. Yeah, we're not building this thing. We're not constructing it. It's always been right there. And maybe it was just hidden by an evil curse. That's what Disney does. So once we had the story in place, then we thought, oh, this is great. Now we have a roadmap. Now we know what to do. We drew a map, and we said, well, maybe this map existed back in the day. This is the one I drew for the project to kind of help us find Fantasyland at the time. And so we drew up this map that maybe was existed a long time ago and somebody had come across. And it kind of showed quickly that all these things were there. So we started with this initial map, and we did a teaser site, but we knew we needed this big experience that would kind of put you in the middle of it all, let you explore New Fantasyland, see what all was there, and at the same time kind of learn the story. And we wanted it to be fun. We didn't want to just make a website and put all the information there. So we started with this, and we made a teaser site, and you'd go to the teaser site, and just the map was there at first, and it collected your email. And with that simple story of, you know, a hero is needed to break the spell, that hero could be you, kind of told the little simple story of Fantasyland. And it said, to be that hero when the time draws near, enter your email address here. And so you'd enter your email address, and the email captures were like through the roof. You know, we got crazy numbers in just a few days of people trusting us with their email that like, yeah, I want to see this experience when it's ready, you know. And so then, you know, we kept building the big experience, the online experience, which combined these things of animation, storytelling, graphics, great design, all this stuff kind of rolled into one. And like I said, there were several teams that came together on this, led by a core team of us, kind of brainstormed that story and design and, you know, art direction for the thing. And so I've got a little video that kind of shows an overview of it, but it's called findingfantasyland.com. You can go there and still play it now, even though Fantasyland is open already. But you can go there and kind of go through the whole experience. But this will kind of give you an idea. We also got like so many cool people other than Murata that did the models and things like that. You'll hear custom music by this place called Dynamo. It's also in Sweden, I believe. And the narration is David Ogdenstier's. He's the guy from MASH way back in the day, but more recently Cogsworth, Beauty and the Beast. He was the voice. And so we got him to narrate this experience and this storytelling. And the numbers have kind of, you know, been through the roof for us on this website. And this will give you a little...
Once upon a time, we had a need for stories. And there was a wonderful land where these tales actually took place. But slowly, our dreams of childhood went from wishing on a star to wishing that we would grow up. And so, we did.
So you went through and you would break the curse and reveal New Fantasyland to the rest of the world. And so all of a sudden, you were not only part of the story, you were the hero of the story. You were the one who broke the curse. One of the things I talked about earlier is, you know, you can be happy doing all of that work and all of those things too, but sometimes you just need to make your environment a little happier, and there's simple things you can do. I built a cereal bar outside my office, and it has free cereal for everybody and milk and all of those things. So it kind of takes you back to that happy moment when you were a child and you were eating too much Captain Crunch berries and all that, which seems to be the most popular cereal we have. It's the Captain Crunch berries. I put the healthy stuff in there, but it goes slower. So yeah, build a cereal bar at your work. Easy to do. So how to be happier. And I know there's a real word that's happier that I could have spelled out, but this seemed better. One thing I realized for me, and hopefully you guys can see this, was that I also needed to keep doing my art. So all that stuff that had started way back, you know, I needed to kind of continue that in order to be happy. So in the early days of my career, and I don't know if this happened to you guys as well, but I would get so frustrated that you know, I was going into these presentations and putting my heart out there, my art, and, you know, a client or the creative director at the time or whoever it was would suggest a change. And, you know, to me, it was almost devastating. It was very frustrating because that was my art. You know, that was the thing, you know, that I had. So I found that painting at night, going into my studio and doing, you know, whatever I wanted in my studio was kind of therapeutic and helped kind of lessen that frustration during the day when I was doing my creative. And at the end of the day, when I was there in the studio at night doing that stuff, you know, the only one who could fuck it up was me. So I like that. I like that, and I kind of found painting and art again. I had always kind of done the sketchbooks, but I was going in and started painting in my studio. And so one of the things that made me happy was painting Angry Mickey. So Angry Mickey kind of popped into my head one day, and I just thought it was kind of fun, cool, a different take on Mickey. And I ended up getting it approved for sale at the Festival of the Masters the first year, and just kind of kept doing these Angry Mickeys. And Disney was, approving these things and letting me sell them through their gallery and stuff like that at Disney. And it was, so it was kind of cool to see Mickey in a little bit different way and get people to kind of buy off on that. And so that led to other, angry characters. Or Goofy, I just couldn't figure out how to make angry, so he's just surprised. Angry, Donald's easy to make angry, of course, And then I don't know if you guys know Oswald, the kind of precursor to Mickey back in the day that Walt had done. But I always liked Oswald. And so then I continued to paint these things on skateboards and stuff like that. I grew up skateboarding and all that. And, they kind of became more graphic and colorful. I like pink a lot, so there's a lot of pink in these things and green. And these are Angry Mickey blocks that I painted. But I also was doing some more, I guess, kind of normal stuff. And this is Mickey and Pluto, called the Paint Collectors. But I do a lot of hearts on strings for some reason. I think everything in life has a string attached to it. So in the art, kind of I wanted to show that, even if it was in these Disney paintings. I don't want to get too deep with it, but everything kind of has a string attached to it in life. So if you do something, it kind of affects something else, right? The ultimate thing with a string attached to it is probably a heart, your heart. And so you'll see a lot of that in the artwork as well. I started doing these screen printed posters. Again, I was looking for something like I could do by hand, and there was like a process to it, almost like making these commercials and stuff that I loved making the commercial and the process that led up to it in my advertising career. But in my art career, I said, yeah, I want to try to make these like screen printed posters myself. And so we went into my buddy's garage. He calls it Hobo Press. And we started making these things, and I love mixing the ink. Again, a lot of pink, and burning the screens, and the whole process of it was just cool to me. And each one, I had a part of, and my, fingerprints were on it, all that stuff. So as an artist, I wasn't sending it off to a printer and having it done, and then, offering it to people. Each one I had touched, and I like that. I also did some stuff for Vinylmation, these custom Vinylmations. So this was a whole different challenge of kind of painting in 3D and figuring out what these things were. I've done a few of these as well over time. The steampunk thing was a little bit of a challenge because I had to figure out how to attach all this stuff to it and paint it, So I kind of continued into the evolution of my own art and what that would be. I had kind of translated Disney art in a different way. And so this is my latest stuff, is my own character called Oh No. And so this is a screen print I did called Oh No Floats. And again, at Hobo Press in my buddy's garage, and printed all these things. And also, a few paintings I've done of Oh No. He wears different costumes and stuff. And the thing about Oh No is he's based on my son. My son is, my older son's 4 years old. And when he was 2, I guess, maybe 1.5, he would grab stuff around the house and throw it down and break it with a big smile on his face. And then he'd go, "Oh no." And I was like, oh my God. At the time it was horrible, but then, after I embraced it, I'm like, this is great. This is funny. And I would laugh, and my wife's like, "Quit laughing. It's breaking everything." So I kind of invented this character called Oh No, who has a bunch of different moods and costumes and stuff. He shows up as a panda a lot. He's also got a devil costume that he wears a lot. And recently I've done him as a firefighter and different things, still painting on the skateboards and all of that. So it's all kind of come full circle. And I am very happy, doing this stuff I'm doing now based on my kids. I have 2 sons now. This is the older one, who's 4, and the one that Ono is based on. Ono kind of looks like him too. And this is him drawing in the parks. Just last week we went to Epcot, and he brought his sketchbook because he wanted to draw like Dad and be in the parks and do his drawing. So that's all I have. That's happiness. I had to try not to cry at the end of that.
Amazing job, and I feel like I always forget to mention that it's we do Q&A at the end of every talk, and so the floor is open to ask some questions, and then Will, if you can kind of quickly summarize to restate.
Yeah. Probably don't need this in there. All right, so what questions do you guys have? Hey, Victor, how's it going? Nothing? Yes. Do I skateboard, or do I like to paint on or do I just like to paint on skateboards? I still skateboard, yes. I grew up skateboarding. I'm not the greatest. I just have fun on it. I grew up doing a lot of half pipe and street skating. So I had a launch ramp in front of my house that my parents hated, and we would, drag it in every now and then, drag it out in the middle of the street. And so I skated a lot of street, and then went to half pipe, and then I've kind of always been on the skateboard, but I'm not on it as much as I used to be, obviously. And, starting to teach my son to get on the skateboard and do all that stuff now. But for me, it was just a cool part of my, history and growing up, and skateboarding taught me a lot of stuff. I wasn't as great at, team sports. I did play soccer and all that, but it wasn't as great at that. And in skateboarding, it was, again, just all on me and the board and our friends and stuff like that. And that skateboarding kind of culture, even though I grew up in Mississippi, was important and a piece of me. So when I started painting and I did these first Angry Mickeys, I wanted to they felt like they should be on a skateboard because, the way they kind of looked in the graphics of them and stuff like that. And so I just started recycling some old skateboards from myself and then some friends of mine. As I started painting on more and more, I didn't have enough, and so I'd collect the boards from my friends that were skating and stuff like that, and just kind of kept doing that. Yeah. But every now and then I go to Orlando Skate Park, or used to go to Vans every now and then, and skate still. It's harder now. Yeah. What's the most challenging part of my job? I guess it's definitely coming up with that big picture idea. That's still a big challenging part of it, even though that gets, I guess, easier and easier as you do it more. But then I guess another big challenge is still selling that idea and getting a big place, a big corporation, a lot of layers, getting those people to kind of buy off on that. Yeah, so can I talk about that process a little bit? Usually we start with something really simple, and what's worked for us in the past with Real Families, Real Memories and New Fantasyland and things like that is we've kind of done this technique where we take those big kind of Sharpie and Post-it note ideas that you saw here and just kind of present those at a very basic level so that people focus on the storytelling and the idea, and they're not focused on any initial comps you did or design yet, because we don't even want them to react to that at this point and get kind of hung up in that whole world, because we wouldn't be able to explore that enough until they buy off on the big picture idea, like this story we had for New Fantasyland of what if it's always been, but was just hidden. And so we figured if we can get them excited about that at a basic level, it's easier for us to get everybody's buy-in to this thing. And then they are a part of the process with you. And so that works too, because then they're in there with you and they're offering ideas, and they're a part of it along the way, and not just something that you kind of, we know it doesn't happen just in a bubble and you do this thing and then present it to them, but that's how it looks to the people on the other side sometimes. Is it like, here's the final idea and this is what we want to do? And, then you start to get immediately like, well, did you explore other options and what else do you do, So we found that presenting it to them on a very basic level, Sharpie, on these big idea pads, has been successful. And we'll take that and we'll scan it in or shoot it real quick and make it into the PDF that we actually use in the presentations, or we'll bring in the big flip chart deck and just, walk them through that story in our process. And like I said, then they're a part of it and then they're buying into it. Yeah, just like any place, agencies on the outside that I was with before, you would go in and present to the client and have to sell them on the idea. Well, we have our clients, our brand managers and partners. They're more like partners than clients because we have a little more of a say than we would if we were just an outside agency coming in to talk to a client. But, we have to sell it to our partners, and then we have to sell it to the highest levels of the company, especially with something like Real Families, Real Memories, or New Fantasyland, where it's a big project, big campaign. We need buy-off at the highest levels. So, I have a chief creative officer in California. We got to get her to buy off on it. And then she has her boss, which is the head of all marketing for Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. And then she has her boss that answers to Bob Iger, So there's a lot of, there's a lot of layers to the thing, and you just got to make sure you get everybody's buy off on that and get them kind of on board of where you're going. And you don't have to do that with every project. Doesn't go to the highest levels, but those bigger ones do. And if you want to do something different with those bigger projects, like I said, get them in on the ground floor, get everybody excited about that story. As soon as we told that story of like, well, maybe New Fantasyland's always been, people were so excited that there was this story about it now that there wasn't before. And people started passing around the story and using the story, people that we didn't even like come across, and they already knew the story of New Fantasyland. So that was pretty cool if you can kind of get them excited about that thing beforehand. Yeah. Yeah. So as an internal agency, can we, come up with our own project and kind of pitch it to them, basically? Yeah, we can, and we have before. New Fantasyland was actually one of those. They weren't asking for all of that stuff. Once we came up with that story and got excited about it, we said, well, we need this big experience, that online experience, findingfantasyland.com. But we didn't have any funding for that. And so we went and talked to all the partners and got everybody excited about it and created this thing and, said, how much money do you have? How much money do you have? And we started to put all of those things together because we thought this thing we were building can help all of those people, and people can take pieces and parts of it and use it for all of their needs too. So we kind of sold that project through from the beginning that, wasn't really asked for, Yeah. So something I do to help inspire happiness with my team. Things like the cereal bar, simple things that are not work-related go a long way. And then the work-related things obviously are simple things you can do. We have creative team meeting where we'll go in and just talk about the latest things that have happened, on the past couple of weeks in advertising and design. And, I collect a lot of that stuff through Twitter and the things I'm following, blogs and stuff like that. And we'll bring that in. But also, it has kind of started where everybody just kind of sends me stuff too. Like, oh, I came across this and you might want to share it in creative team meeting and all that. And we just kind of get together and talk about like, why were those things cool and that was funny and, did you see this? And those things go a long way, just like simple things. Bring bagels every now and then. It's easy to inspire people and keep them happy. I think it's just you try to treat them nice, you know, and give them a few things and appreciate the hard work they're doing, you know. Creatives definitely need to be like appreciated. You know, we need to be told like that was really good that you did, and do some more of that, and that was great, and that kind of goes a long way. Just doing those little things. Yeah, my son's the same way. Gluten and then the peanuts and nut allergies and all that. So is there allergy-free cereal bar? There is at least one kind every time, you know, that we have that'll be gluten-free and nut-free and stuff like that. Yeah, but on my team we actually don't have anybody that has those allergies, but we do have people that come over from other parts of the floor that are, you know, non-creative and stuff too, that visit the cereal bar. So we at least try to have one, you know. What's that? Yeah, no. The cereal bar is for everybody, my friend. It's, yeah, one more. Yeah. Yeah, what do I do when I have creative block? I try to not think about it, you know. The more you think about it, the more that block kind of builds up. And this happens early on a lot. And then you realize it's not a big deal after a while, and that it's just going to happen, and you need to embrace it. So when you embrace that creative block, it's like you take the power away from it, and it goes away. And it's hard to kind of get your head around that at first, but it really does work. So you start to think about a thing, and you think and think and think about it. You got to do that. You got to start it off with that. And so once you do, it's kind of in your head. But then you got to walk away from it, and you got to let it go and totally not think about it. And you've probably heard this before, but your subconscious will work it out, figure it out. And then you kind of come back to it, maybe hit it one more time, bounce some ideas off somebody else, you know, and then walk away again. And then all of a sudden it will just like pop in there. The right thing will happen, or there'll be this nugget of something that's there that will kind of work itself out. But you got to like embrace the block, you know, and that's why it's hard, because you work in an agency or design shop, a lot of times there's deadlines, right? And it gets tough when it's due in an hour and you got to be creative. It doesn't work so great like that, you know, and that's why you got to push back on some of those things and fight for more time and fight for the correct amount of thinking time to get that done, because we can't just push a button and concept that thing, you know. So we got to think about it, and we got to walk away from it. And when you walk away from it, it's, you know, it's like that thing of like setting it free, and if it comes back to you, you know, it's like you walk away and then all of a sudden the idea's back, and you're like, there it is. So, I don't know, that probably doesn't help at all, does it? Thanks. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate you coming out. And if you have any other questions, I'll be here for a few minutes. And, you know, thanks for having me.